If Old MacDonald had a radio, it would look something like this. The MacDonald Instruments FM AM LCD digital clock radio. And that's spelled M-A-C Donald, not to be confused with the fast food chain. MacDonald Instruments was best known as a manufacturer of CB radios, walkie-talkies, and scanner radios in the 1970s. And they also made this rather stylish, portable, battery-powered alarm clock radio. And it caught my eye because I'm a sucker for anything with a silver faceplate and chrome buttons and switches. It reminds me of classic hi-fi audio gear. It was made in Hong Kong by MacDonald Instruments, and the model number is 06-31-75. Everyone should have a battery-powered radio in case of power and internet outages, so you might as well make it one that's nice to look at as well. If I can get it working, because this was a thrift store find and it has some corrosion on the battery terminals. But thankfully this looks like leakage from carbon zinc batteries, which in my experience is a lot less damaging than leakage from alkaline batteries. It also has the name Churi scratched into the back cover, which is something that police departments used to recommend that people do as a very low-tech way to help track down the owner of lost or stolen property. Unlike the leakage from alkaline batteries, which is actually a base even though everybody calls it battery acid, the leakage from carbon zinc batteries is actually an acid. So to clean it, you should use something that is a base, such as ammonia. So let's see how this goes. It's rather caked on, but it does appear to be coming off with enough scrubbing. So I'm going to keep working at this until it's all cleaned off. Using a brush instead of Q-tips is proven to be much more effective. Look at it bubble up. With the help of ammonia and isopropyl alcohol, I was able to remove all of the battery acid. Unfortunately, the acid's corrosive effect also removed most of the nickel plating on this terminal, which had the worst buildup of acid on it. But the underlying metal is still intact, so it should still make a connection to the battery. And there's this partition in the battery compartment because the radio runs on 6 volts, which is 4 batteries, and the clock runs on 1.5 volts, which is 1 battery. I put in new batteries, and the first good sign is that the clock is working. It's not actually 3:12 a.m., that's just the time it decided to come up with. And it's very dim, but there's a little grain of wheat incandescent light bulb in there that comes on when you press the snooze button to help you see the clock in the dark. Actually, there are 2 light bulbs, one on each side, and they're just bright enough to read the time in the dark. And if you move this switch to the sec position, the clock displays minutes and seconds. And the way you set the time is you move the switch to the time position, and then you use the hour and minute buttons. It's currently 7:08 p.m. Well, that minute button probably has dirty contacts. Okay, I was able to struggle my way through it, but these buttons are definitely going to need their contacts cleaned. It also has an alarm, which is currently set to 1 a.m., a time I definitely don't want to wake up at. So let me change that to something more reasonable, 7 a.m. And that's the alarm beeper, which also plays the radio at the same time. You can also have it wake up to just the radio. And the snooze is rather stingy. It comes back on after only 4 minutes, instead of the standard 9 minutes.
Death. Wind's news time is 8:09. We'll have traffic and AccuWeather.
As for the radio on FM, it actually has very good reception.
A big problem. Oh, me.
Been the same.
Be happy to know that there are a lot of school field trips and after-school programs.
I want to sleep like Daniel.
Hard.
to support their families.
Make believe in you.
You want a different result.
What should someone...
It's picking up all the stations. It has a tone control switch on the side. The low position is rather muffled sounding, although it does help to reduce the hiss of a weak signal. And if you want to doze off to music, it has a sleep button, which plays the radio for about an hour and then automatically shuts it off.
Hi, this is Barry Grauman, and since smoking is a no-no, I want to tell you that the following program contains commercials of a purely historic nature. They are in no way intended to promote the sale and or use of the product mentioned therein.
Thanks, Barry.
Gunsmoke. Brought to you by L&M, the modern cigarette that lets you get full, exciting flavor through the modern miracle of the pure white Miracle Tip.
The band switch for the radio is on the back, as well as a mono earphone jack and a 6-volt DC power input. The reception on AM isn't as good as FM, but it's still sufficient for tuning in your favorite news, sports, and right-wing talk stations.
Ball in play, it doesn't have all around the world.
Yankees, obviously.
The counter-third.
Here is the Jets have struggled to get back.
And various strange noises, too. But there's always something good on AM if you have your own transmitter, like this. Here in the US, this is perfectly legal as long as your output power does not exceed 100 milliwatts, your antenna length does not exceed 3 meters or about 10 feet, and you're not causing interference to any other stations.
SoftRockRadio.net, the lighter side of classic rock and more.
And actually, there are stations on AM that are playing music that are not my own transmitter. For example, this oldies station playing Styx, and this Bollywood station. Taking a look inside, the radio circuitry is all very conventional. You've got the AM ferrite bar antenna, tuning capacitor, a bunch of coils, an 8-ohm speaker rated at half a watt, and one integrated circuit doing most of the work. At first I thought this was a date code of October 1983, which seems about right considering the radio's styling, but that's actually the part number of this chip, TDA 1083. It's a completely integrated AM/FM radio tuner, including a built-in audio amplifier. And over on the clock side, the one main chip with some beautifully artistic traces going to it was made by NEC. It's the MU-PD833. And yes, that's the Greek letter mu, not the Latin letter U. And underneath this piece of electrical tape is the 32 kHz crystal for the timing. With the help of some electrical contact cleaner spray, the minute button is much less flaky now, and there's no more crackling on the volume control. I'm glad this little McDonald Instruments radio turned out to be an easy win, because I recently got this similar looking but even nicer General Electric radio at the thrift store with multi-LED tuning system. Unfortunately, when I first turned this on, it worked for about 2 seconds. Then I heard a loud pop from the speaker, and now when you turn it on, the only thing it does is light up the little red LED in the tuning dial pointer. Everything else is completely dead. So this one is going to need more comprehensive diagnosis and repair. It won't be as easy as just cleaning out battery acid. In the meantime, I'm very happy with this vintage McDonald Instruments portable alarm clock radio, which, like I said, has nothing to do with the fast food chain.